The Millionaire's twin babies finally slept. But what their new nanny did shocked everyone. When billionaire widower Alexander Reed hired a new nanny for his restless twin babies, he thought it would be just another short-lived attempt to bring peace into his mansion. For months, no one could get the infants to sleep, not even the most expensive child specialists. Then came Maya Thompson, a quiet, composed black woman whose resume was ordinary but whose calm energy was extraordinary. Within a week, the babies slept soundly. Yet something more profound began to unfold, something that would expose buried grief, hidden racism, and a truth Alexander was never prepared to face. Alexander Reed's mansion stood like a monument to both wealth and loneliness. Since losing his wife, Claire, during childbirth, his life had turned into an endless cycle of business meetings and sleepless nights. His twin infants, Ethan and Ella, had become symbols of both love and loss. Despite hiring the best caregivers, nothing worked. The babies would cry for hours, unable to find rest, as if haunted by their mother's absence. Every nanny who entered that golden cage left within days. Some said the house was cursed. Others said the babies could feel the grief of their father. Alexander didn't care what they thought. He only wanted silence, some form of peace. When the agency sent Maya Thompson, he didn't expect much. She was soft-spoken from a modest background, and nothing about her seemed exceptional by his elite standards. Yet the moment she stepped into the nursery, something changed. She didn't rush to hold the babies. She just stood there, humming softly, a song no one recognized, something old, something rooted. Ethan's crying slowed. Ella blinked and turned her head toward Maya's voice. Within minutes, both were calm. Alexander watched in disbelief. He told himself it was a coincidence. But as the nights passed, the house that once echoed with cries now breathed with peace. The twins slept through the night for the first time since their mother's death. Yet beneath that serenity, an invisible tension began to rise, not from the babies, but from the whispers of the household staff. They questioned Maya's methods, her background, and her race. Some said she used strange lullabies. Others muttered about how a woman like her didn't belong in a house like this. Maya was different from anyone Alexander had ever employed. She worked quietly, efficiently, with an intuitive sense of care. The babies adored her. Even the twins' routines began to synchronize, something no doctor or sleep trainer had achieved. But the mansion's staff, the butler, the head housekeeper, the cook, didn't share the same admiration. They spoke in whispers when Maya passed. They exchanged knowing glances. It was the kind of hostility that hides behind politeness, small acts that speak louder than words. The cook began to forget Maya's meals. The butler ignored her greetings. When she entered a room, conversation stopped. They didn't need to say the word black, but every pause, every glance carried it. Still, Maya never reacted. She poured her energy into the twins. Every night she sang the same lullaby, a haunting, beautiful melody in an old dialect of her grandmother's tongue. She said it was a song about protection, sung to children in times of loss. Alexander noticed the transformation. The twins laughed more, ate better, and even smiled when he entered the room, something that hadn't happened in months. For the first time since Claire's death, Alexander felt warmth returning to his home. But then came the rumors. A board member's wife, a frequent guest at Alexander's charity events, whispered that Maya's methods were unconventional, that she was using African chants and superstitious tricks to control the babies. The whispers spread like wildfire through the upper-class circles. Alexander, caught between gratitude and pride, began to question things. Could it be true? Could Maya's success have some hidden cost? He confronted her one evening, his voice colder than he intended. He asked where she learned the song. Maya simply replied, "From women who loved children before the world learned to doubt love because of color." Her words lingered. But prejudice is a quiet poison. It doesn't shout, it whispers. Days later, a social worker arrived unexpectedly, claiming an anonymous tip suggested inappropriate care was being given to the twins. Maya was investigated, questioned, and humiliated, all while Alexander watched, silent. Though no evidence was found, the damage was done. Maya began packing her bags that night, and then, as if sensing the tension, the twins began to cry again. Maya stood by the nursery one last time. The twins screamed uncontrollably, their faces red, tears streaming down. No one could calm them, not even Alexander. He begged her to stay, but pride and pain burned too deeply in both of them. "They need you," he whispered. She looked at him, her eyes filled with both sorrow and truth. Without a word, Maya began humming that old lullaby once more. The melody wrapped around the room like a soft wind. Slowly, the baby's cries faded into soft breaths. They fell asleep, both at once, their tiny hands curled around each other. Tears rolled down Alexander's face. For the first time, he truly saw her, not as an employee, not as someone beneath him, but as a woman who carried generations of wisdom, strength, and compassion that his world had never respected. In that silence, he realized what she had done wasn't unthinkable, it was human. Pure, unconditional care that had transcended every wall society tried to build. But when he turned to thank her, Maya was gone. She had left quietly, leaving behind a handwritten note on the crib. It read, "Sometimes love is misunderstood when it comes from a different color, but love doesn't ask for permission to heal. It just does." Days turned into weeks. The twins slept peacefully as if Maya's lullaby still lingered in the air. Alexander searched for her, but every lead ended in silence. The agency had no record of her after that assignment. It was as though she'd vanished into thin air. He found himself haunted, not by guilt alone, but by awakening. He saw how quickly his own silence had joined the chorus of quiet racism that had driven away the only person who truly helped his family. At a charity gala months later, Alexander made a public announcement. He launched the Thompson Foundation for Fair Caregiving, a program supporting minority caregivers and nurses across the country. He shared Maya's story, without naming her, as a testament to the unrecognized brilliance that racism too often buries. Every night before putting his twins to bed, he hummed that same lullaby. He didn't know all the words, but he carried the spirit. It was his way of remembering and atoning, because some lessons don't come through business success or wealth. They come from humility, from being broken open by someone society overlooks. And as the twins drifted to sleep, the last lines of Maya's note echoed in his mind. Love doesn't ask for permission to heal. It just does. That began with Sleepless Babies, ended as a quiet revolution. One heart, one song, one act of grace at a time, because sometimes the unthinkable thing is simply love that refuses to bow to prejudice.